Okay, so there is a massive difference between when I'm making a cocktail for the channel and when I'm just making a cocktail for myself on a random evening. Honestly, more than half the time, I'm just gonna have a beer. But if I'm going to have a cocktail, I like to keep it simple. And it makes me wonder when I see, you know, famous bartenders on YouTube or read a cocktail book by a famous bartender, like, what do they actually drink on a random Tuesday evening when they're making dinner? So this drink, or these drinks, as I'm going to be making 2 cocktails today. Anyway, these drinks were the preferred random Tuesday evening at-home cocktails of one Monsieur Sasha Petraske and his wife, Madame Georgette Moger. I think it's Moger. Anyway, named after the classic French sandwiches, which translated mean Mr. and Mrs. Crunchy, respectively. The base of both drinks is Campari and soda. Monsieur stops right there, while Madame calls for an additional splash of Plymouth gin and an orange twist. As you can see, I have a few gins on hand, but none of them are Plymouth, so I'm going to use the rose gin. I think it will work really well in this recipe. And with that, it's time to assemble. Starting with 2 frozen Collins glasses, I'll add a couple large ice cubes. And then each glass gets 1.5 ounces of Campari. Side note, it is always cool when I can kill a bottle on camera without running out. And then for Madame, 1 ounce of gin. Top both with the fizzy water of your choice. I personally love the aggressively carbonated Mexican mineral water, Topo Chico. Give Madame her orange twist. Add straws to both. And enjoy. Alright, well, I'm going to try the Croque Monsieur Petraske before I try the Croque Mademoiselle Moger. I think it's Mademoiselle. I think MME is Mademoiselle. Anyway, I'm going to try this one because it's a simpler recipe, and then we'll try the more complicated one second. There we go. I didn't want to get a big hit of Campari at the bottom and just fizz at the top. Cheers. That is the definition of an aperitif. It is not very sweet at all. It doesn't have a huge amount of flavor, but the flavor it has is very herbaceous and bitter. Exactly the right thing to prepare you before a meal. Personally, it's not exactly what I would want before dinner. I think I'd probably go with something like Aperol or just a completely different drink. Or like I said earlier, I'd probably just have a beer. All right, let's do a switcheroo. Cheers. Now that is much more up my alley. The gin sort of balances out the bitterness from the Campari, and it brings a little bit of sweetness with it. The smell of the orange twist really sweetens up the perceived bitterness of the Campari. It doesn't actually change the sugar content, but it changes the way it hits your palate, I guess. Ooh, so good.